Free-thinking, innovative, and totally open-minded. Tommy Nation Politics.
That we're going to get a verdict that is say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't, we cannot go away. We've got to get more
12 jurors now deliberating the fate of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin.
Did Mr. Floyd die exclusively of asphyxia, or were there other contributing factors?
May it please the court, counsel, members of the jury. His name was George Perry Floyd Jr., and he was born on October 14, 1973, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, to his parents, George Floyd Sr. and Larcinia Jones Floyd, Sissy. And in that time and in that place, while he was surrounded in life by people he knew him, faces he could pick out, there was no one there he knew. He was surrounded by strangers. Strangers, all of them. 9 minutes and 29 seconds. He's surrounded by strangers, not a familiar face to say his final words. But he did say them to someone. He said them to someone who he did not know by name, but he knew him from the uniform he wore and the badge he wore.
Get a verdict that is say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't, we cannot go away. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
The judge denied a request for a mistrial over her cause. The defense may have grounds for appealing a guilty verdict later on.
I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case. Their failure to do so, I think, is abhorrent, but I don't think it has prejudiced us with additional material that would prejudice this jury. They have been told not to watch the news. I trust they are following the instructions.
And he called him Mr. Officer. That's what he called him, Mr. Officer. Mr. Officer would help. We call the police when we need help. And he pleaded with Mr. Officer. George Floyd's final words on May 25, 2020 were, "Please, I can't breathe." And he said those words to Mr. Officer. He said those words to the defendant. He asked for help with his very last breath. But Mr. Officer did not help. The defendant did not help. He stayed on top of him, continued to push him down, to grind his knees, to twist his hand, to twist his fingers into the handcuffs that bound him, looking at him, staring down at times the horrified bystanders who had gathered and watched this unfold. The motto of the Minneapolis Police Department is to protect with courage and to serve with compassion. But George Floyd was not a threat to anyone. He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He wasn't trying to do anything to anyone. Facing George Floyd that day, that did not require 1 ounce of courage, and none was shown on that day. No courage was required. All that was required was a little compassion. And none was shown on that day.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics.
We came, we saw, he died.
To govern is to choose, a French prime minister once said,
And this week, President Biden made a difficult strategic choice. He announced a timeline for the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan, 20 years after they arrived there. For several years, the U.S. has been unwilling to make a choice in Afghanistan, settling into a policy that was more a punt than a strategy. Biden should be commended for actually making a hard choice and not kicking the can down the road one more time. Was it the right choice? I believe so. Let's recall that the United States has tried virtually every possible approach in Afghanistan. Initially, after 9/11, it went in with a light footprint, allying with local forces. After a few years, that strategy was seen as flawed because it gave the Taliban the opportunity to regroup. Under President Obama, Washington expanded coalition forces. At their peak, they numbered around 130,000. They attempted a comprehensive counterinsurgency policy to provide safety and win the hearts and minds of the locals. But while the surge produced gains, they proved temporary. As U.S. forces withdrew, the Taliban always bounced back. Then Donald Trump announced a mini surge of his own, adding troops, but claiming that American soldiers would only fight the enemy and do no nation building. Eventually, he decided he'd had enough and withdrew some of those troops, bringing them down to the current level of 3,500. To understand why the United States couldn't win, we should remember the dictum coined by Henry Kissinger in 1969 when describing the war in Vietnam. The guerrilla wins if he does not lose. The conventional army loses if it does not win. The question we don't ask enough is not why America failed, but why the Taliban have succeeded. For the past 20 years, facing the world's most powerful army, with the most advanced weaponry and intelligence in history, the ragtag Taliban has survived and often prevailed. We spend a lot of time condemning the Taliban for their fanatical ideology and their treatment of women. We call them terrorists, but we don't seem to ask, despite all that, why have they done so well? Mao once said that guerrillas can succeed only if they can move amongst the people as a fish swims in the sea. The Taliban have managed to do that. Scholars on the ground have found that ethnic identity and solidarity are key to understanding Taliban success, far more important than military prowess or economic aid or even good government. Many people, particularly Pashtuns, the largest ethnic group in the country, identify with the Taliban. The Kabul government is often associated with the outsider, with foreigners. In his brilliant book, The Accidental Guerrilla, counterinsurgency expert David Kilcullen recounts a battle in which local Afghans joined the Taliban even though they were not ideologically aligned with the group. They simply felt they had to join the fight and fight against the outsiders. And no matter how much money and services the United States may provide, it remains the outsider. There are other reasons for Taliban success as well. It's difficult to think of a single case in history in which an insurgency was defeated when it had a sanctuary across the border. And the Taliban have enjoyed a haven in Pakistan and help from that country's military. They've also benefited from the massive corruption unleashed by the tens of billions of dollars of American aid and military spending that has utterly distorted the Afghan economy. The U.S. weakened the Kabul government by insisting that it fight opium production, which for better or worse has been a staple agricultural product in provinces like Helmand for centuries. Ultimately, it comes down to a simple reality. An outside force that has an ambitious set of goals, establishing a functioning democracy, ending the opium trade, ensuring equality for women, cannot succeed without a powerful, competent, and legitimate local partner. People will claim that this withdrawal shows that the U.S. does not have the capacity to stay the course. They will say American troops should remain in Afghanistan as they have in South Korea and Germany. But those forces are stationed to deter a foreign invasion, not to hold the country together. American soldiers have stayed in Afghanistan twice as long as the Soviets stayed there, and longer than the U.S. did in Vietnam. It is time for them to come home. Let's get right to my exclusive interview with the President of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani. Welcome back to the show, Mr. President.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
When we've talked in the past, you have said you would support a positive peace in Afghanistan, but not what the Taliban, you said, sometimes seem to want, which is the peace of the grave. Which one of these is likely following President Biden's announcement of a U.S. withdrawal?
The announcement has been a game changer because the unexpected for the region and for the Taliban has happened. The announcement was not unexpected for me. We have been deliberating about this for 2 years. Now it's a time for recalculation. For us, it's a time of opportunity. For Taliban and for Pakistan, it's a moment of choice. Will they opt to become a credible international stakeholder with rules of the game for a peaceful heart of Asia in connectivity, or for opting for chaos? Equally for Taliban, the major excuse that this is a war to get the international forces out of Afghanistan is over. There is no religious justification left for the war. Political settlement is a must, but the ball clearly is in the court of Taliban and their supporters.
It sounds like, Mr. President, you support the president's announcement, or at least you think that there can be a positive effect from that announcement.
I respect the president's decision. I have always made clear on your show, particularly, that I never discussed numbers or whether the United States should stay long. A strategic decision has been made. The implications of this at the operational level, tactical level, in re-strategizing for the region, for the Islamic world, and for us at the national level is the imperative. The context is radically changed. My style of working is that when context changes, my entire energy is focused on working in the new context. And I'm focused on the opportunities, and I think the opportunities are real.
During the previous administration, during the Trump administration, when they were trying to reach a
This
deal
guy
with
gets
the
a
Taliban,
grade A,
it would often
number
be
one,
leaked to members of
for
the press.
bootlicking. Did y'all
that
hear
you
that?
were the obstacle.
Whenever
that
the
you were
situation
unwilling to
changes,
share
I
power
will
with
be
the
most.
Taliban.
I'll
Was
just
that
get
true,
to the
and
rest.
has that
Thank
changed?
you, Mr. Biden.
It wasn't true.
Looks like we did
Because
some regime
I
change.
ran on a peace
Guys, does this
platform.
look like regime change to you?
I think it should be remembered.
we were victorious.
It was I who secured the first ceasefire in our history in 2018. The question was, who was going to own and lead the peace process? What we proposed to the Trump administration 2 years ago is that if you want to withdraw, deal with us, the legitimate government of Afghanistan, not with the Taliban. On
With
that
the
issue.
legitimate,
They made
the ones with the
choices,
ties. Well, the
and because
conventional
of
wisdom,
that,
the social
they
norms.
needed a figure to
Like this
blame
guy.
things upon. I was never the obstacle, and again, in preparation for the Istanbul conference, I went to my nation and clearly indicated that I was willing to reduce my elected terms of office, but my condition was a democratic succession, where the people of Afghanistan would
Democratic
decide
succession,
on the
where
succession.
he gets elected.
For me, it's the principle, not power. Power is an instrument of service, not something personal.
When you think about the Taliban going forward, do you imagine a national unity government? Do you imagine that they are simply going to seek a military conquest of Kabul? What is your sense of where will the Taliban go from this?
Well, what I hope they will go for and what they're likely to go for are likely to be different things. What I'd like to them is to seize the new context where a true national political settlement is made that integrates them within the government, within the society, within the economy. And that we form a government of peace for a brief period, culminating in an election that is internationally supervised and monitored, and in order to make sure that the wounds of the past 42 years, particularly past 20 years, are healed, we will need a discussion of a national compact in the preparation, the justification, and approval of any peace deal should take place in the Loyjerga, our historical institution, where all walks of life are brought. And it's imperative that the Taliban sit with their Afghan sisters and brothers, if that's what they consider us.
This is your place for free thinking, innovative, and totally open-minded media, independent. Tommy Nation Politics, guys. Tommy Nation Politics. Please visit us at www.tommynationpolitics.com. Get all those videos, get notified. Put yourself in the front lines of the war. Join the fight, guys. Also, if you want to send us some messages, if you want to come on the show, if you want to talk, if you want to get that free thought flowing, guys, I recommend you go to facebook.com/TommyNationPolitics and send me a message, give me a link, show me what you're doing. Let's collaborate. Let's make music. Also, guys, it says progressive independent media. I ask my humble audience for the resources to fight the machine. This is the machine, motherfuckers. And let me tell you guys, I want to come at these guys with all of the slings, all of the arrows, all of the axes, like Legolas, like Gimli, son of... I forgot. Every race. This is the fight to Mordor. It's for life. It's for liberty. It's for the pursuit of happiness. And I'm for it. PayPal, Tommy Nation Politics. Anything will do. I'm gonna buy some influence, buy some advertisements. I'm gonna go and infect the minds of millions of sheep, turn them into wolves and lions and dragons. Let fire and blood rain, guys. I'm in that mood today. But I have to say, guys, even more so of the fire and blood, aggressive expansion behavior that I'm in right now, I will have to tell you that I'm also really focused. I'm focused. My nose is at the ground, guys. I have not been shaking, arranging covers of Britney Spears songs and not looking at the news. I am all together with the news. Okay, thank you very much. I can do two things at the same time. I could do covers of Britney Spears, and I could also watch the news. What's in the news? Well, check out that Ashraf Ghani guy. Did y'all see that? With what's his name? Fareed Zakaria. Sexy, right? Like his hair. Yeah, it's goddamn past time we get out of Afghanistan. Who Ashraf Ghani? Look at that guy. As long as there's elections and democratic elections where the election gets to be, I'm elected as the president of Afghanistan. This guy is boosting, kissing up. I'll go with whatever plan you want, Mr. Biden. Man, bootlicking, it sounds the same in every fucking accent. British, English, Australian. Hey, good day, mate. Would you like? Can I be the Secretary of the Transportation, sir? Can I be the Secretary of the Transportation? Sir, can I get myself maybe a little budget committee at the you know the thing. Look, buddy. Yeah, it's like everybody's getting what they want except for Black Lives Matter. So, guys, check it out. Confrontations and closing arguments. I'm laying it out for you. So, prosecutors and the defense have asserted their closing arguments. We have a verdict for Derek the douchebag Chauvin. We had Maxine Waters making trouble, talking about how they need to be more confrontational. How we need to be more confrontational. The judge said, of course, you heard him, that was abhorrent. There's a checks and balances, Miss Maxine Waters. Checks and balances. What a confrontation we had there. Then, of course, the daily confrontation of police and black people. And then, lo and behold, CNN's Fareed Zakaria says that President Joe Biden made the correct decision to pull U.S. combat troops from Afghanistan because the United States cannot succeed in bringing a functioning democracy and reforms in the country without powerful, competent, and legitimate local partners, i.e., we need bootlickers on the ground that look like these people. You know those brown people and black people that were fucking drone striking and murdering? Well, here's the plan C. We tried drone striking him and murdering him. We tried putting him in Guantanamo Bay. Now we tried everything. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some bootlicking cucks that look just like them, but they're really Republicans and Democrats, i.e., Ashraf Ghani. So it's very depressing, guys, as far as democracy goes. Did Joe Biden have anything to do with this Afghanistan exodus? Guys, anybody? Anybody on the chat? Anybody want to answer that question? Did Joseph Elizabeth Biden have anything to do with getting out of Afghanistan? No, he did not. I know, guys. It's crazy, but Biden faces, this is USA Today news. Biden faces Trump's deadline on Afghanistan troop withdrawal. Any way you cut it, we are headed for a messy outcome. U.S. troops have been in Afghanistan for 2 decades. Will they be out by May 1st? So apparently the Trump administration made a deal with the Taliban that they were going to be out of Afghanistan. And then I'm sure Donnie was like, hey, you look like a strong, high ratings guy, Ashraf Ghani. You could run this place, right? We could just get out of here because we're not winning. Very low ratings, Afghanistan war. 20 years, guys. It's probably Trump's big idea to put Ashraf Ghani, the bootlicking cuck, in charge of the getting out and the democracy. He's gonna be Guaido part 2. Y'all know what I mean? When we acknowledge the president of Venezuela, Guaido, he's not even the president. It's Maduro. And the people literally didn't accept it, and they were like, what the fuck are y'all doing? We tried to do a coup where we just made Guaido the president. And then he got kicked out of the United Nations. All the games that we're doing, guys, I mean, are they coming to a head, guys? Is anybody out there in the chat? Does anybody out there on the chat know what all of this just siphoning to power and not thinking about any of the consequences of our actions, nor of our health and life and liberty? We're just fucking going to the next dollar. We're going to the next paycheck to paycheck. We're going to the next infrastructure bill. We're going to the next black guy that gets shot by a Minnesota cop. Does anybody want to comment on the monotony of our routine arrogance fulfilling itself into stupidity? Almost forgot, guys. Happy 420. It's 420. That's a good thing. We've got 15 states that have legalized. But like I said, guys, money makes the world go round. And I'm glad that everyone's getting paid. Former Vice President Walter Mondale died today. He was 93. Walter Mondale, man, the first guy who got his ass kicked royally by Ronald Reagan. And he never fucking lived that down. Jimmy Carter did too, though, to be fair. Mondale, he was the president. He wanted to, he elected Geraldine Ferraro as his vice president back then. The first woman vice president. I think that was Geraldine Ferraro. She was from Texas. She's from Texas, by the way. But he was from Minnesota. The trials and tribulations for the state of Minnesota. The police, man. I mean, I thought the police were fucked up already. But check this out. Police vowed to not to detain journalists covering Daunte Wright's protests from the Hill. The Minnesota State Patrol has vowed to no longer arrest, threaten, physically abuse any journalists in the Brooklyn Center after a number of journalists said they were harassed by law enforcement last week amid the demonstrations. The law enforcement agency said, "There is a curfew in effect, but we shall not be threatening or using physical force against anyone. And we would not have that reason to do so." Oh, they're acting so innocent. The agency also said officers won't be using chemical spray against someone we know or have reason to know is a member of the media, or seizing equipment from, or ordering someone to stop recording. Anyone who's a part of a media can still record without chemical spray in their face, guys. Isn't that awesome? So congratulations, media. The police are exercising restraint for you. For us, not so much. But they will no longer maim, destroy, or physically injure a member of the media. Because now that Biden's president, I mean, the media is not the enemy of the people anymore. Okay? The media is not the... We've got a whole new tone, guys. Something super relates to this tone, though. Like I keep saying, the recurring theme. All of this action, all of this little busy work, all of this meeting schedules and conventional wisdom and social norms, guys, you know what it's for? It's for the dollar. I'm so bored because there's nobody on chat. So I'm going to read a letter that the Democrats sent me. I love to read their letters. So just excuse me, indulge me, please, if you could. Yes, I have another letter from the Democrats. It says, just plainly, no really anybody addressing me at all. Just, Thomas. Look who's on the chopping block for 2022. It's a picture of Rand Paul. He's in trouble. He's in the Democrat letters. Uh-oh. What did Mr. Paul do? Senator Rand Paul, Kentucky, voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act and stripped health care away from millions of Americans. Oh dear. Mr. Paul, you did that. He also voted against COVID relief multiple times and voted against the American Rescue Plan. Well, Mr. Paul, that American Rescue Plan was for the rescuing of the American people. Why in heaven's name would you vote against that, sir? Oh, Mr. Paul, you're on the chopping block for 2021, too. When the midterms? 2022. The chopping block. 2022. It's up to us to defend and expand our Senate majority. To enact President Biden's agenda. Build back better. Oh, it is. Quite so. Quite so. Build back better. Quite so, Mr. Biden. Biden's Build Back Better. Oh, I'm positively giddy thinking about such things. And so much more. It is, isn't it? So much more. Will you rush $10 donation to help Flip this other seat's blue in 2022. Flip it all blue. 2022! Got a little rhyme there, don't you, Democrats? Okay, so what are you going to do if you're in power, Democrats? You're going to go, well, see, what is Ron Paul on the chopping block for again? He voted against the repeal of Affordable Care Act, did he? And he stripped the health care away from millions of Americans, did he? Well, sounds like a Republican and Democrat thing to do. You see, you guys didn't give us health care in the middle of a pandemic. You made us all stay at home and lose our jobs. So, why is this Ron Paul on the chopping block? Shouldn't it be all of you motherfucking turds? You useless sacks. You wastrels. Puppets of the rich. You cockwobbles. No. Only Rand Paul is on the chopping block. Y'all are all on the chopping block, by the way.
I mean, I'd always been interested in sound.
And so is this video. You know, Haydn, he wasn't like Mozart. He couldn't compose things long enough for me to do a monologue. But that was my letter from the Democrats. So, who's getting money? Ashraf Ghani's getting money. Probably the president of, what's his name? Afghanistan. We're getting out. For reals this time? For reals? Maybe. We'll find out. But it's really all there is in the news, guys. I have to tell you this. Oh, also liberals warning Biden against lengthy talks about this. So, you know, you want to push him to the left, right? Joe Biden. Well, he promised to be bipartisan. He's been having lots of talks with the Republicans about this infrastructure bill, and they came out of the meeting yesterday feeling like it's a bipartisan bill. What does bipartisan mean? It means that they rob you together. Joe Biden's entreaties to Republicans on his infrastructure bill are picking up steam, but progressives are warning the president not to get attached to his GOP friends. I personally don't think Republicans are serious about addressing the major crises facing this country. Duh, they're not. Maybe I'm wrong, but we're certainly not going to wait for an indefinite period of time, said Senator Bernie Sanders. Oh my God, he's always not waiting, and then he's trying to pass checks for $2,000, and Chuck Schumer's already passing the military bill without you. We're going to move forward rapidly, said his vow. They'd have some time to say, now is the time to say it. I've got a lot to say, Bernie. Liberals are wary that the GOP may be trying to protrude on the infrastructure talks, potentially setting back Democrats' ambitious agenda. I'm so curious to know what their ambitious agenda is, because it's not roads. But several prominent progressives also want to keep Biden, trying to negotiate with Republicans. At the moment, the two sides seem very far apart. Biden's initial infrastructure spending pitch was more than $2 trillion. By the way, I still haven't seen a plan on that. What are we doing with that infrastructure? What are we working on specifically? Are there going to be government contracts? These are all interesting questions that no mainstream media person will ask. Republicans have not indicated that they would be willing to spend anything more than $800 billion. So this is what I'm talking about with Republicans and small government. They all say, to be kind to the Democrats, say they really did have a huge, bold agenda and they needed all these resources to make it good and lasting, like buying, something priceless like gold instead of something like plastic or something corrosive. Gold is always, keeps that shimmer. But the Republicans, they don't want to spend more than $800 billion just to fix the problem. This is the problem with the Republicans in the first place. So what does Biden's little negotiations, unity talks with the Republicans mean? Probably means that we're going to have a half-assed plan that's not going to work, and it's going to cause more neoliberal effects, which are poverty, gentrification, and crumbling infrastructure like roads and bridges. By the way, If I was in France, I could go to Marseille, which is near the ocean. I could take a Eurotrain to Paris in 3 hours. Do we have a train such as that? Are we the greatest country in the world? If I was to go to the hills of Frankfurt, Germany, I would peer over and see an Autobahn. Majestic, glorious piece of infrastructure made by a socialist party. Let's not talk about that socialist party. If I was to go to Tokyo, see a monorail, even China. Why are we sucking so hard, guys? I know the answer. It's because all these guys want to do is funnel money to their donors, and they're not really trying to help us at all. So we should probably not elect them anymore. And but we could talk about guns if you want. So nobody's on the chat. I already did a show earlier. I blew off some steam about cops. Y'all should check that out. That was part 1. This is part 2. I'm going to forego singing. It's 4:20. Enjoy yourself. Remember, harmony and understanding. Sympathy and trust abounding. Love before and derision for that living dreams of legends. Mystic crystal revelation. True minds deliberation. Free thinking. Innovative. Open-minded.